Hello, welcome to World Book Day 2010. My name's Beverly Hills and I'm delighted to have been asked to introduce to you today World Book Day's chosen authors and stories being read to 1 million kids. And now I'd like to introduce a book that's part of the Jamie Johnson series, and it's called Born to Play, and it's written and read by Dan Freedman.
I'm going to be reading from chapter 13 of Born to Play, in which Jamie Johnson is playing in the biggest match in his local area. His school, The Grove, are up against Kingfield School. And we're halfway through the match, it's 1-1, and Jamie is up against a boy called Dylan Simmons, who is going to be his enemy throughout the series. Okay. Jamie had to admit it. This was one of the toughest matches he'd ever played. Normally, The Grove, his school, were better than the other schools. With Jamie Johnson and Sean McGivern up front, they had too much firepower for most teams to handle. But today was different. Today, The Grove came up against a team that were just as good as they were. It was going to be a seriously close game, and everyone knew it. Kingfield had taken an early lead through their top striker, Ashish Khan. Jack had warned Jamie about him, and she'd been right. He could seriously shift. He'd outpaced the entire Grove back line before sending a cheeky chip home to open the scoring. But then, like any good team, The Grove had hit back quickly. Jamie had dribbled past 4 players and set up Sean McGivern, who'd equalised with a trademark curler into the top corner. And since then, the game had been really tight. Even Jamie was finding it hard to make an impression. And the main reason for that was Dylan Simmons. He was tracking Jamie wherever he went. And if he wasn't putting in dangerous, crunching tackles, he was taunting and teasing Jamie with his verbals. It was as though he really hated Jamie, even though this was the first time they'd ever met each other. Oi, Ginge, where'd you get those boots? A charity shop? Can't you afford a proper pair? Dylan Simmons smirked as he made a run past Jamie towards the Grove's goal. Didn't he know that defenders were supposed to stay at the back? Jamie hadn't reacted to any of Dylan's cusses yet. He knew his time would come. He just had to wait until the time was right. Then he would show Dylan what true talent was. Show him that skill was way more powerful than brute force. Suddenly, the ball had rebounded to Dylan, who was standing 35 yards from the Grove's goal. Dylan powered forward, controlling the ball firmly on his chest. The ball bounced up above his head. Then, as it dropped, out of nowhere, Dylan pelted a ferocious left-foot volley at the goal. It was a massive strike, and it was on target. Jamie couldn't bear to watch. As soon as the ball had been struck, he could tell it was going to go all the way. It was way too hard and far too high for the Grove keeper to get anywhere near it. It shot like a rocket straight into the top corner. Dylan Simmons, the big, stupid, psycho defender, had just scored an unbelievable solo goal. And didn't he know it? 2-1 to Kingfield against the Grove now. Come on! Dylan shouted, his cheeks burning red with glory. He'd raced over to the corner flag and kicked it way out of the ground to celebrate his amazing goal. What do you think about that then? He roared at the Grove players. Have some of that. The Grove were losing. Jamie hated losing at anything. It didn't matter what it was, a game of cards, snakes and ladders, a computer game. Whatever he did, he had to win. But most of all, what he couldn't bear, what he couldn't accept, was losing at football. Once, when Jamie had lost a big cup game at his primary school, he had been so angry and upset, he hadn't eaten a thing for the whole of the rest of the day. His mum had got really cross, telling him that he was going to make himself ill. But Jamie had just ignored her. She didn't understand that losing at football was the worst thing in the world. It started a rage within Jamie, a rage that could only be calmed by him proving them wrong. him proving that he was the number one, he was the best. Now, as the ball bounced towards him, Jamie knew it was time for him to do something. He gathered in the ball and went on a run. As soon as he had the ball under control, Jamie's mind instantly rid itself of all the clutter that normally littered it. Now, with the ball at his feet, Jamie's brain was clear and free. Free for football. Programmed to play. Set to score. Jamie turned on his turbo gear and raced forward with the speed of a panther. He'd already sped past 3 players and was heading right for the heart of the Kingfield defence when Dylan Simmons slashed him down with a violent foul. Jamie had been stopped. But not for long, because now he had exactly what he wanted, a free kick. Jamie stood and addressed the ball, straight on. Then he took 3 steps back, stood up to his full height, and puffed out his chest. He took a series of deep breaths as he visualised exactly what he wanted to do with this free kick. It was a fair way out, 22 yards from goal, so Jamie knew he had to go for swerve and power rather than curl and accuracy. Jamie stared hard at the ball. He was thinking about Luis Rodrigues. Rodrigues was a Portuguese winger and the best free kick taker in the world. Jamie had spent the whole of the last week watching his free kicks on YouTube. Watching the free kicks in slow motion, Jamie had noticed that when he struck the ball, Rodrigues never used a full follow-through. He punched his foot ferociously through the ball, but then, as soon as possible after he'd made contact, he brought his foot back down to the ground. This seemed to unleash a movement in the ball that no other technique could produce. Perhaps it was something to do with the pressure in the ball. Either way, it was impossible to stop. Now it was Jamie's turn to have a go. Jamie took a deep, determined breath, followed by 3 powerful strides towards the ball. Then he hit it with the maximum force his body possessed. He struck the ball perfectly on its valve, bringing his foot quickly back down to the ground after it made contact. Now Jamie just stood and watched. He'd done his bit. The rest was up to the ball. All the players on the pitch, and even the referee, were hypnotised by the movement of the ball. They watched as it arced towards its target. The goalkeeper stood paralysed on his line, his feet anchored to the ground. Jamie actually felt a bit sorry for him. How could you try and save a ball when you had no idea which direction it was going to move in next? Thwack! The ball hit the goalkeeper's right-hand post halfway out. Now it was spinning furiously across the goal line. Was it going to go in? Or was it thud? It hit the other post and it bounced out. It was unbelievable. None of the players had ever seen a shot hit both posts and then bounce out without going in. Every player stood open-mouthed, trying to work out the science of how it had actually been possible. Every player, that is, apart from Sean McGivern. He was already on the move. He chased smoothly and swiftly after the ball, catching it in an instant. He hungrily gobbled up the chance, clipping the ball home with a quick, powerful strike before anyone else had moved. That's what made McGivern different from other players. He was a true finisher, a natural-born predator, and he'd just scored again. 2-2 now. Even though it was McGivern's name on the score sheet, Jamie still raised his arms proudly above his head in triumph. He nodded confidently in appreciation of his own skill. He even looked up to the sky in some form of acknowledgement. He knew that no one else on the pitch was capable of doing what he had just done with the football. Suddenly, Jamie felt his whole body being hoisted into the air. "What a free kick, Jamie!" Bryn Staunton was shouting. His bear hug from behind had lifted Jamie 4 feet off the ground. "That was just like Rodrigues, awesome!" "Of course it was," said Jamie, as Bryn finally put him down. "I taught Rodrigues everything he knows." There were 10 minutes of the match left, and both teams were piling forward in search of the winner. There was glory on offer for whoever could snatch the final goal. Jamie was desperate to get on the score sheet and win the game for the Grove. He had a feeling that he still had a big role to play in this match, but as time ticked on, it was Kingfield who looked the more likely to score a goal. They had a corner. "Go on, you all go up," Dylan Simmons ordered his Kingfield teammates. "Don't worry about the ugly Ginge, I'll handle him." Jamie hated being called Ginge. If he could just get onto the ball, he knew he could tear Dylan to shreds. But right now the action was all happening at the other end. As the corner was whipped into the centre of the area, Bryn Staunton and one of the Kingfield players rose to contest it in the air. It was a 50-50 tussle, and although the Kingfield player made the first connection with the ball, they clashed heads badly. It sounded like two coconuts being crashed together. Jamie saw the Kingfield player slump to the ground. He looked in a really bad way. But the ball had been cleared straight to Jamie. With everyone committed to the corner, there were only two outfield players in the Kingfield half. One big, strong defender called Dylan Simmons, and one small, swift, skillful winger called Jamie Johnson. Now was the time for Jamie to let his talent come tumbling out. He latched onto the ball and immediately turned to face Dylan Simmons. Then he channeled all his anger at Dylan into his legs and burst forward with the ball. He was travelling at his very top speed, jinking left and right with amazing close skill. Now the tables had been turned. Jamie was the one who was teasing Dylan, but he was doing it with the ball. His pace and control was mesmerising the big defender, who suddenly seemed to be struggling to even stay on his feet. This way and that Jamie turned, each time slipping away from Dylan's lunges. Jamie was like a wet bar of soap that Dylan could never quite catch. He wasn't just one step ahead of Dylan Simmons. He was light years in front. Finally, Jamie flew past Dylan. Dylan tried to kick him. Of course he did. But the impact of his boot had no effect on Jamie. The shin pads protected him perfectly. Now Jamie bore down towards goal. He only had to decide how he was going to finish this game. Whether he would go around the keeper with the ball or just slot it past him from the edge of the area. "Bang it! Shoot!" Jamie's teammates from the Grove were shouting. They knew Jamie never missed a one-on-one. But while his teammates were yelling at the top of their voices, Jamie had noticed that the crowd on the sidelines had gone deadly quiet. In fact, they weren't even watching the game. They were pointing back towards the Grove's penalty area, and there was worry on their faces. Jamie turned around to see that the Kingfield player who had gone up for the header from the corner was still lying on the ground. He hadn't moved. Jamie knew something was not right. If players were rolling around in agony, it meant they were in pain. But if they were not moving, it meant they might not even be conscious. Almost without thinking, Jamie kicked the football straight out of play. Yes, he was giving up a near certain goal, but he knew that boy needed help.
When you were a child, was any of your life like Jamie's?
Yeah, quite a lot of it was like Jamie. Obviously, we both love football. We both wanted to be footballers. Jamie was the lucky one that he actually has more talent than me, I suppose.
Do you plan to write any more stories in the series? If you do, would you put any new characters in, and could they be girls?
There are 3 books currently out. Born to Play actually goes before those, but there is a new book also called Man of the Match coming out this summer. Going to be loads of new characters. We've got some funny managers, some big foreign signings that Jamie has to go up against. And yeah, girls obviously play a big role in it. Jamie's best friend and the person he always turns to is a girl, and she has a very big role to play in the book Man of the Match, which comes out in a couple of months.
What was your favourite book as a child?
For me, I loved anything by Roald Dahl because it's funny, isn't it? He's not teaching you things, he's not telling you what to do, he's just entertaining you. And so I always try and get that element of fun and humour into what I write. And yeah, he's a brilliant author.
What made you decide to become an author?
So many things inspired me to want to be an author. I had lots of stories, particularly about football, because I used to work in football. There was also a massive challenge of writing something good enough to get published. The pride you feel in seeing the books go all over the world and being involved in World Book Day. And also, football-wise, through Jamie, I get to live out the football dreams that I could never achieve. So I live them out through Jamie Johnson.